sarcastic.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome everybody to T and Z Talk on this Thursday, the 10th day of March 2016. And happy almost spring to everybody. I believe it's on the 21st. Watching the weather last night, and they said, remember, it's still winter. Okay, enough. Daylight savings time, by the way, this weekend. You will spring forward. For those of you that are Donald Trump followers, that means you take the clock before you go to bed and you forward it an hour. So for those of you that are following Donald Trump, forward it an hour.
That means we.
Anyway, welcome to the show.
That means we lose an hour, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So you are obviously not a Donald Trump follower.
Well, you know.
Let me give out the number, and then I'll introduce you. Stop it. 347-855-8118. 347-855-8118. Joining me now is my radio partner, Richard Zombeck, the Z and TNZ. Go ahead.
Hello, T in TNZ. Hey, so listen. So here's what I was looking at the other day. Right, there's this thing on Facebook where this guy, this Trump supporter, he's going nuts at one of the primaries that Trump won. This is great, and this other guy goes, that was just a primary, right? And the guy keeps going on that Trump won and that he's going to be president, right? So as the conversation continues, it looks like the guy convinced the Trump supporter that he's not going to have to vote again. Right? That he already voted for Trump.
That's a good thing.
Right. That he already voted for Trump, and that he won't have to do it again because he's voted for him and he can only vote once. And the guy's like, well, yeah. Well, of course. Well, yeah, you can't vote twice in an election, you idiot. This is what the Trump supporter's saying, right? And the other guy's just like going, okay.
I love the uneducated. I
know. It's just, oh. And then we had to.
Guess what I'm doing tonight?
I believe you're going to be on some kind of show somewhere.
I'm going to be on the Ed Schultz show again.
Groovy.
We're going to be previewing the Ohio primary, which is a winner-take-all. But we'll save that conversation for tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to that. So for those of you that will be joining us tomorrow, we will play some of the audio from that, I believe. It's on RTV America, so if you have that on your cable system, I know that there are a great many hotel chains around the country that carry RTV as well. Check it out. In the meantime,
I actually found.
Debate.
Hold on just a sec, because I actually found that a little strange. Right, when you were on the show the other night, I got to the link. I couldn't really tell when Ed Schultz was on because it's not called the Ed Schultz Show. I think it's just news or something. And then I was looking for ways you could watch. So I found the online thing. I was able to record it from the other night when you were on. And then I started looking at other ways you can watch. And I was like, boy, if worse comes to worse, I'll drive up to Peabody, which is like 2 towns away from me. I'll get a room at the Holiday Inn and I'll check in. I just found it really weird that there was just this unbelievably long string of hotels that have as a normal channel Russian TV.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised as well.
No Trump hotels, though.
As we kind of found out, he has an audience because we saw a little bit of a jump in our social media and website visits. So it was nice to see that. Anyway, last night in Miami, there was a debate between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. By the way, there's a a cartoon in the Washington Post today. And it says on the bottom, the coronation of Hillary Clinton. And there's a picture of Hillary, and there is a mini Bernie Sanders being put on her head, and someone standing next to her saying, "That's not a crown."
You get all the good stuff. You find all. I gotta start paying. I gotta start paying attention to the Washington Post.
Let me just read some reaction to last night's debates on Twitter. And some of these names people will know, some of them they won't, but that's okay. Trip Gabriel. Really? Hearing Dees talk about Latino immigrants after months of Trump and Cruz is like being in two different countries. Our buddy Frank Luntz. What a difference. The Democrats wait their turn. The Republicans yell over each other. I hope the GOP candidates are watching. Woodruff Betts. That would be Martha. I love this debate. Elizabeth Landers, this is pretty amazing. Watching at Univision reporter live translate a presidential candidate's response to a questioner at a debate. Sal Hernandez, question from Guatemalan woman during debate whose husband was deported is a powerful, real moment for the debate on immigration. Noah Rothman, every Trump voting sequestered conservative should be forced to watch this debate to see what the alternative to republicanism is. And finally, Clara Jeffrey, this is about 1 trillion times more substantive than all the GOP debates combined. Go ahead and react, Z.
Yeah, well, here's one from Twitter handle Zombek. Best Buy offering killer deals.
Hey, I know that guy.
This is the tweet. Best Buy offering killer deals for Repubs who smashed their Spanish-speaking TV tonight. Hashtag Dem Debate. Ha ha. You want to bet whether or not that one got retweeted or liked or anything, or if I got any commentary on it?
Probably more than once.
Oh yeah. And then, of course, there was the huge thing of what color Bernie Sanders' jacket was. There was
what the hell was that all about? It was obviously brown. So where was the controversy?
Well, it was a blue suit, Tony. He was wearing a blue suit.
And why did it look brown?
Well, Photoshop thinks it's brown. I mean, if you took a screenshot and did a color,
so does Tony.
I know it seems that the lighting was off and there was some weird stuff going on. All
right, let me say that a little different way. Why would it freaking matter what color the suit was?
Well, you remember that whole "what color is the dress" meme that was going around, and no one could tell whether.
Yeah.
So you know, same thing. What color was Bernie's dress?
Well, and then, of course, there was, hey, Bernie, you don't wear a tie with a button-down shirt. How many times have you seen Bernie with a tie and a button-down shirt? Millions. Why is it all of a sudden an issue? Shouldn't be.
What, you don't wear a tie with a button-down shirt?
That's what I don't know who, Dana Milbank, someone wrote that. I don't remember who it was.
When did that become a rule?
Last night.
Listen, if you're like in your 70s and can still put on your clothes by yourself and comb your hair, I think you're doing pretty well.
I don't know that comment helps Bernie. I have actually been asked more than once, do I think Bernie Sanders is too old? I laugh at that because here's my response to them. And I just tell everybody, listen, you got a right to your own opinion. How old are you? And I get all kinds of answers, 30s, 40s, 50s. And they'll say, well, let's say I'm 37. Why do you ask? Do you think that you can travel, literally fly to 4 states one day, speak to literally thousands upon thousands of people, get about 3 hours sleep, and do it again the next day for months on end if you're too old? Oh, good point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at my dad, who is going to be 80 in a few months, and I'm not even exaggerating. He plays tennis like 5 days a week against kids that are younger than him in their 30s, some in their 40s and 50s, so not kids, could easily run me ragged on the tennis courts, and rides his bicycle about 100 miles a week. So
now, he's not taking any banned substances from the International Olympic Committee, is he?
No, not yet. He belongs to a cycling club.
Not yet. He's waiting until he's in his 90s for that.
Exactly.
Huh?
Exactly. I have a friend actually who was on the who's a professional cyclist, and he is it's tough. That's not easy.
Some guy named Lance?
No, some guy named Kurt.
All right. Well, I had to ask. Well, yeah. Anyway, then a story comes out yesterday. Don't know if you saw it. That presidents age at twice the rate as anyone else, and that once they leave office, within 3 months, they go back to aging normally. That, of course, then brought up another spate of, well, if that's true, how is Bernie Sanders going to get through 4 years? How about one day at a time?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I don't have a problem with it. You know, I mean, and the thing is too is that for me, that he's still got the same amount of passion and vigor for issues that he did. I mean, do you know how many old people turned Republican by that time? So, you know, I mean, he's kind of an anomaly. He hasn't retired to Florida, and he's not voting for Trump.
All right. Well, let's I can start or you can start, but overall impressions from last night's debate between Bernie and Hillary.
Between Bernie and Hillary, not the one between us.
We didn't have a debate last night.
I know, but you know, well,
okay.
I was looking at the Time magazine online poll of who do you think won, and with over 40,000 votes, Bernie Sanders 89%, Hillary Clinton 11%.
You ready for this one?
Yeah.
In the Hill, winners and losers. Hillary Clinton winner. Mixed results, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. That's the online poll?
No, that's their pontificating.
Oh, that's the pundits who thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win Michigan by a landslide. Those same ones?
Well, that would be the pollsters. That would be the pollsters.
Right, but is that the, yeah.
You know, at the Hill, they don't consider themselves pundits. They consider themselves journalists.
Yeah, well, you know,
I'm just saying.
You know, I was a reporter, and I'm a journalist, and I've always thought that presenting facts was more important than, I don't know, how I'd like things to turn out. But that's just me.
Yes. By the way, my days of hot chocolate are quickly coming to an end.
Well, that's a sad
Just
announcement.
saying. Well, you know, the weather's getting warmer. It is very spring-like out there. We have flowers blooming.
I thought there was some
not
kind
next week, but the week after. The extended weather forecast is calling for snow, but I don't expect it to happen. All right, let's. We've got some audio, and we've got a lot of opinions. Let me give you my. Well, you know, you didn't tell me your opinion on last night's debate.
Do you want an extended opinion, or do you want a short who won, who lost opinion? Because
I just want your opinion. I'm not going to feed you what.
Well,
you want to say,
I kind of gave you. I kind of gave it when I you know extrapolated from the vote on Time magazine. I mean, look, Bernie Sanders got a standing ovation at the end of that debate, a standing ovation at the end of that debate, and I was under the impression, I kind of thought, and as I usually do, I think one, Hillary Clinton didn't didn't answer a lot of the questions. One, she didn't answer outright, like just didn't answer at all. And
which one?
About whether or not she would step down if she was indicted on the emails. She refused to answer that.
Well, she said she won't be indicted.
Right, it's not going to happen.
She didn't. She just said, I won't be in. Right.
Right. But,
so that's an answer. You just don't like it. You just don't like the answer.
Well, but the question was that if you are indicted, will you step down? That was the question.
Can I tell you who the biggest winner was last night?
Please.
Before you go on?
Please do.
The moderators.
The who?
The moderators.
Oh, they were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
they didn't settle.
No, they didn't let them. Well, a couple times they let them keep going, but they asked follow-up questions. They said you didn't really answer the question. That's what moderators are supposed to be doing. And here we saw, moderators, terrific moderators.
They were terrific moderators. Anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go on with your analysis, sir.
And I think that Hillary Clinton once again, in the true form of politics, made some disingenuous remarks, made some misleading statements about Bernie Sanders' record. In fact, David Axelrod during the debate tweeted, "She did it again, and I'll say it again. It's misleading to imply that TARP 2 was an auto bailout bill." So again, and this is what I don't like about her is that she uses a tactic that assumes, probably mostly correctly, that the voters are ignorant to what happens and how bills and voting occurs in Washington, and she uses that tactic to her advantage. But on the other hand, Bernie manages to explain things fairly simply and succinctly. That kind of tactic is starting to not work as well as it has in the past. So there's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, my 2 cents is not drastically different than yours. I still think Hillary is the better debater. I still believe that she's trying to find her message, but getting better at it. When she talked about not being a natural politician, certainly not being Bill or Barack, I thought was rather honest. I thought her exchange with the woman on her husband being deported was touching and real. I appreciated the way she slowed down her talking so it could be translated in a proper fashion. But at the end of the day, it was Bernie who not just survived the debate, but was able to deflect the criticism. And she did not she had that opportunity, unfortunately did not have the facts on her side. And so, yeah, Bernie wins that one. We've got some audio, and I'm just going to let you, again, spin the wheel of audio and play whatever you think matters.
Well, how about when they were asked about Trump?
Absolutely.
Secretary Clinton, you've known Donald Trump a long time. You've seen what kind of campaign he's running. Secretary Clinton, is Donald Trump a racist?
Karen, I'm going to follow my friend Senator Sanders' model here. If I'm so fortunate enough to be the Democratic nominee, there will be a lot of time to talk about him. I was the first one to call him out. I called him out when he was calling Mexicans rapists, when he was engaging in rhetoric that I found deeply offensive. I said, basta. And I am pleased that others are also joining in making clear that his rhetoric, his demagoguery, his trafficking in prejudice and paranoia has no place in our political system, especially from somebody running for president who couldn't decide whether or not to disavow the Ku Klux Klan and David Duke. So people can draw their own conclusions about him. But I will just end by saying this. You don't make America great by getting rid of everything that made America great. And
Secretary Clinton, my question is about his character. And that is one of the primary things that Americans think about when they choose their next president. How would you describe the character of a person who has said the sorts of things he has about Mexican immigrants, about women, and who would ban people from entering this country based on their religion?
I think it's un-American. I think what he has promoted is not at all in keeping with American values, Karen. And I'm going to take every opportunity to criticize him, to raise those issues. I'm not going to engage in the kind of language that he uses. I think we can make the case against him if he is the nominee by pointing out what he has said, what he claims to believe in, the values he's promoting, and I think that's a better way for the American people to draw their conclusions.
And there it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
She's got to be careful that she doesn't go after him too much, because I think when she started assuming she was the nominee and started running as a general election candidate, that hurt her. So I thought her answer was fair. Now, Bernie was also asked about Trump. We should probably play that one as well.
Yeah.
Senator Sanders, do you think it's fair to call Donald Trump a racist?
This is what I think. I think that the American people are never going to elect a president who insults Mexicans, who insults Muslims, who insults women, who insults African Americans. And let us not forget that several years ago, Trump was in the middle of the so-called birther movement, trying to delegitimize the President of the United States of America. You know, I find it very interesting, Karen. My dad was born in Poland. I know a little bit about the immigrant experience. Nobody has ever asked me for my birth certificate. Maybe it has something to do with the color of my skin.
So what does that tell you about his character?
I think, and I am very pleased. I am very pleased that I think in the last national poll that I saw, we were running 18 points ahead of Donald Trump.
Yeah, that was excellent. that was beautiful. And he's pointing to his hand, you know, when he's saying that. That was Bernie Sanders in a nutshell. You know, I mean, a lot of it, I tend to prefer, and you know this, I tend to prefer candidates who are aware of the facts, are aware of who they are, and aren't prone to sound bites and things like. Now that'll get them into trouble too, because the comment that Bernie Sanders made about ghetto got him into trouble, and that rapper Big Mike or whatever the hell his name is came out in defense of him and said, "Hey, listen, you know, we use this colloquial term all the time, and for him to use shorthand, you know, is not something we should be attacking him for." So, you know.
Well, and Big Mike did a great interview with Bernie. I posted it about a month ago. Yeah. And they were in a barber shop. It was a great little interview. It was done in a couple different parts. But they have a kinship, which is important.
Well, and it's obvious, too, when you see them. Bernie Sanders is genuine. He doesn't come off as genuine. He is genuine. And I really think, and you know, I do think Hillary has a lot of baggage simply because of the work she's been doing, of the amount of time she spent in politics. But by the same token, Tony, Bernie Sanders has spent a lot of time in politics too, and there's not a lot of dirt on him as much as they might try, and they tried last night. They tried last night with some of his comments on the Sandinistas. Hillary Clinton tried to get him on some Minuteman thing, and he gives a lot of thought and has given a lot of thought to how he votes. He seems to remember what he said years ago and what he meant when he said it, and can easily deflect those accusations and insinuations. And you can see it in his face when those comments are coming out too. Someone will make a comment and he'll start looking and, shaking his head and going, no. Like, you got this all wrong. You got this all wrong. And it's becoming obvious to people what's happening here. I really have a big problem with the underhanded, disingenuous, quote unquote, dirty politics. And I understand that's part of the game.
I know you.
Well, but you
say it every day.
Well, because I think it's a lie. I think it's lying. Whether or not it's fair game, I think it's lying.
Well, it may be lying, but it is fair game, and it's the way the game is played. And ultimately, you just have to learn to live with it, which you don't want to do, and that's fine. I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with that. Listen, I said in my analysis of the debate that Bernie had an answer for everything. Hillary did not. And, she's going to have to live with that result. Now, how they end up doing in Ohio and Illinois and onward is yet to be seen. Was Michigan an aberration for Bernie Sanders? Too early to tell on that score. Do we ignore polling now because one of them in Michigan was wrong for every single poller in the country? I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
Well, what do we have coming up? We've got Ohio's coming up, Illinois is coming up, and of course Florida, right?
Florida, yes.
Yeah.
And Hillary is leading by large margins at this point in all of those states. Again, do you ignore the polling? That's, I guess, a personal decision. Back to the debate. Bernie, again, brought up Hillary's Wall Street connections, her friends, as he calls them. So let's listen to Bernie on Hillary's Wall Street speeches, and then she responds to that.
Yeah, this was actually pretty good.
Senator Sanders, you have demanded that Secretary Clinton release the transcripts of her paid Wall Street speeches. Why is this important? Do you have reason to believe that she says one thing in private and another in public?
Well, what I have said is that when you get, I believe it is $225,000 for giving a speech, and she gave several speeches to Goldman Sachs, one of the Wall Street financial institutions whose greed and illegal behavior helped destroy our economy a number of years ago. When you get paid $225,000, that means that speech must have been an extraordinarily wonderful speech.
So does this mean that you would not think she would have to disclose?
I would think that a speech so great that you got paid so much money for, you would like to share it with the American people. So I think she should release the transcript.
Senator, so you're saying that it's the
Secretary said, well, she will do it if other people do it. I will do it. I didn't give any speeches. There is no transcript.
But my question was, do you think she's saying one thing in these speeches and another in public?
That is exactly what releasing the transcripts will tell us. This I do know. This I do know. There is a reason why Wall Street has provided $15 million just in the last reporting period to the Secretary's super PAC. Now, the Secretary says it doesn't influence her. Well, that's what every politician says who gets money from special interest. The question that the American people have to determine, you could say that Wall Street is greedy, they're fraudulent, but they're not dumb.
Thank you, Senator.
Why are they making those kind of large contributions?
Thank you. Your time is up.
I love the part. They must have been wonderful speeches.
And I'm sure they were.
That must have been a great speech if they paid you that much for it. Again, I agree. I agree with Bernie. Let's hear the speeches.
All right. Well, listen, I'm not sure why she's fighting this, but this issue doesn't seem to be hurting her. Well, maybe it goes to the honesty issue. Maybe it does. I don't know. We know she's not doing well in that category. But this issue doesn't seem to be specifically holding her back, and maybe that's why she doesn't release them. But she actually had something to say about her speeches. So this is what Hillary had to say about the speeches.
Well, let me respond, as I have numerous times during this campaign. I have a public record, and you can go look it up. I went to Wall Street before the Great Recession and basically called them out, said that their behavior was putting our economy at risk, called for a moratorium on foreclosures. I went to the Orlando area during the 2008 campaign to make the same case, visiting with families who had been defrauded by mortgages, these subprime mortgages that put them and their homes at risk.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton.
I called for those changes. I have been on the record, and now I do have the toughest, most comprehensive plan to go after Wall Street, and not just the big banks, all the other financial interests that pose a threat to our economy. And I have said no bank is too big to fail, and no executive is too powerful to jail, and I will use the powers that have now been passed by the Congress, by President Obama, who, incidentally, took a lot of money from Wall Street, which didn't stop him from signing into law the toughest regulations on the financial industry since the Great Depression.
Yeah, so...
well, she makes a good point there.
Well, but here's the problem with that point, okay, is ProPublica got a 28-minute video speech of hers that she was giving to business executives at the NASDAQ Stock Exchange on December 5th of 2007, right? About a year before the crash. And, in the speech, in that 28-minute speech, she gave a shout out to her wonderful donors, quote unquote, in the audience. And what she asked was that the bankers voluntarily suspend foreclosures and freeze interest rates on adjustable subprime mortgages. And she then praised Wall Street for its role in creating the nation's wealth. And she added, too many American families are not sharing in that prosperity. Okay. Then she said that the economic troubles weren't mainly the fault of the banks, quote unquote, not by a long shot. And then asked them that they need to shoulder some of the responsibility for the role. And while there's plenty of blame to go around for the reckless lending, and Wall Street may have created the foreclosure crisis, it certainly had a hand in making it worse and needs to help us resolve it. So what she says in defending herself is that I basically called them out, which she didn't. She just said, hey, listen, this financial crisis, it's a big problem. You guys may have had a play in this, and we need you to kind of help us out by maybe having a moratorium on foreclosures because this is getting a little out of hand and it's starting to look bad. So she didn't go and tell them to cut it out or stop. She basically and here's the thing. And
yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Well,
you're now you're splitting hairs.
Well,
Yesterday you weren't splitting hairs. Now you're splitting hairs.
Well,
listen, it's obvious you don't like Hillary Clinton. It's okay.
Look, I want to
okay.
let me add one thing. Okay, is that I understand that any senator or representative of New York has Wall Street and the big banks as their constituents. So there's no doubt that they have to tread lightly. So did she do the best that she possibly could under the circumstances and knowing who her constituency and donors are? Yes. Yes, she did. But to then stand up and say, I went and told him to stop this, and make it sound like she's Elizabeth Warren or something is a bit of a reach. And if that's splitting hairs, well, then I'm going to continue to split hairs.
Well, again, you're... I don't disavow what you're saying. I would like to hear the speech, not read it. Her tone would matter. You and I would probably agree that intent is critical, right?
Yes.
When someone speaks, I don't care what they're speaking about, intent is critical. I didn't hear the speech. I don't know what her intent was. I don't know what the tone was. Now, if the tone was very laissez-faire, matter of fact, nonchalant, I have to say this because it's what is going to be on record, then I got a problem. If she can sound forceful and genuine, because I've heard her do it many times, well, whether it's real or not can be debated, but that would change my perception in a more positive light. But being that I've not heard the speech, I can't make that judgment clearly. We are quickly going through this hour. I mean, very quickly going through this hour. Well, so I did want to.
Well, let me just backtrack.
Go ahead.
I will put the speech up on the site with our audio for the show today.
Our podcast.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Now. No problem. I do want to get to a little more audio. Then I want to preview tonight's debate. I want to talk about Marco Rubio and Donald Trump yesterday with Anderson Cooper saying that Islam hates us. Apparently he doesn't know that Islam is a religion, that Muslims may hate us, but Islam can't.
Well, some Muslims may hate us.
Well, I'm just saying. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. Let's listen to Bernie talk about socialism because I love it when he does that.
Yeah, no, this is really good.
In 1985, you praised the Sandinista government and you said that Daniel Ortega was an impressive guy. This is what you said about Fidel Castro. Let's listen.
You may recall way back in, 1961, they invaded Cuba. And everybody was totally convinced that Castro was the worst guy in the world, that all the Cuban people were going to rise up in rebellion against Fidel Castro. They had forgotten that he educated their kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society.
In South Florida, there are still open wounds among some exiles regarding socialism and communism. So please explain what is the difference between the socialism that you profess and the socialism in Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela?
Let me just answer that. What that was about was saying that the United States was wrong to try to invade Cuba, that the United States was wrong trying to support people to overthrow the Nicaraguan government, that the United States was wrong trying to overthrow in 1954 the government, democratically elected government of Guatemala. Throughout the history of our relationship with Latin America, we've operated under the so-called Monroe Doctrine. And that said that the United States had the right to do anything that they wanted to do in Latin America. So I actually went to Nicaragua, and I very strongly opposed the Reagan administration's effort to overthrow that government. And I strongly opposed earlier Henry Kissinger and to overthrow the government of Salvador Allende in Chile. I think the United States should be working with governments around the world, not get involved in regime change. And all of these actions, by the way, in Latin America brought forth a lot of very strong anti-American sentiments. That's what that was about.
Senator, in retrospect, have you ever regretted the characterizations that you made of Daniel Ortega and Fidel Castro that way?
I'm sorry, please say that.
In retrospect, have you ever regretted the characterizations of Daniel Ortega and Fidel Castro that you made in 1985?
The key issue here was whether the United States should go around overthrowing small Latin American countries.
You didn't
I
answer
think
the
that
question.
that was a mistake, both in Nicaragua and Cuba. Look, let's look at the facts here. Cuba is, of course, an authoritarian, undemocratic country, and I hope very much as soon as possible it becomes a democratic country. But on the other hand, it would be wrong not to state that in Cuba they have made some good advances in health care. They are sending doctors all over the world. They have made some progress in education. I think by restoring full diplomatic relations with Cuba, it will result in significant improvements to the lives of Cubans, and it will help the United States and our business community
Thank
invest.
you, Senator. Your time is up on that.
Thank you. I'll let you start, Tony.
Although he never did answer the question. But that's okay, because I liked the answer. And I agree that if we normalize relations with Cuba, there's an economic impact, a positive economic impact for this country. And as you know, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, recently announced that I believe it's at the end of this month that he'll be traveling to Cuba to meet with Rafael Castro. And very much looking forward to seeing what transpires there. He is also going to try to thaw relations between Cuban baseball and American baseball. And for those that don't understand the complexity of that issue, go Google it. It's a bigger deal than you realize, and would stop a lot of defections to this country. Would also get rid of what's been considered ongoing spying efforts on behalf of the United States. There's some important and significant advancements that can be made by normalizing relations with Cuba, Z, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this plays out.
Yeah, and I think his examples, here's the thing, is there's an attitude in this country that socialism somehow leads inevitably to communism and a dictatorship. And the stuff that he points out about Cuba is, okay, and I agree, there is definitely a downside to certain brands of socialism. But, for example, his education, they're sending doctors all over the world. What he's referring to, and this is part of socialism, right, is an American, for example, could go to Cuba today and get into medical school and get a full medical degree for free and be sent back to your country. And the stipulation on having that medical degree for free is that you have to devote a percentage of your time to poor and intransigent, you know what I mean, people, the homeless and the suffering and the poor, that 10 to 20% of your time has to be allotted to giving people free medical care. And as long as you do that for a specified amount of time, whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 years, you don't owe that medical school any money for your medical degree, right? And these are concepts and systems that work, Tony. And it's like a draft for the Peace Corps, right? It's like every kid getting out of high school should spend time helping or improving a community or taking part in some kind of community effort or helping in their community and helping the country, whether it's cleaning up streets or working with kids or teaching kids how to play basketball or whatever. And we have a portion of this country that thinks that means, the nanny state and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry, but, when they start accusing things of we have regulations in this country so that toasters don't blow up and burn down your house, right? And we have a portion of this country, usually from the right, that thinks that there should be no rules, there should be no expectations, nobody should pay any taxes, nobody should participate in the community. And that's basically what socialism says, is that, everyone wins and everyone partakes in that, and a rising tide raises all boats. And I think that's, for me at least, whether or not that was a huge extrapolation from what Bernie said, that's what my impression of what he's getting at.
Right, and I agree with that. And I think the answer to the question that he didn't answer should have been not, I regret saying it, but certainly knowing what I know now, I would have said it differently.
Yes.
With that said, let's move on. There is a debate tonight again in Miami amongst the GOP candidates. And I said in our promo for today's show, or I wrote in our promo for today's show, that you can bet your last buck that it will not be the same as what you saw last night, which was two adults allowing each other to talk, rarely interrupting each other, agreeing to disagree, agreeing to agree, saying to each other from time to time, my friend Hillary or my friend Bernie. It's called adult behavior. We won't get that tonight, and that's fine. Here's what I think might happen. Donald Trump has been criticized a great deal the last 2 weeks about not being presidential. Now, as the jackass caller we had yesterday, who decided to drop the F-bomb and use inappropriate language on this program, said that's what he liked about Donald Trump, there are voters that are getting concerned. And I'm not buying the media narrative, Z, that the race is tightening and that Ted Cruz is gaining favor. There are stories out this morning that the quote-unquote establishment is now reluctantly siding with Cruz. I don't believe it for a heartbeat. Not at all. I don't believe they are. And by the way, who is the establishment? Do we know who the establishment is? Is it lobbyists?
Well, we don't. And yes, it is lobbyists, and it's the super powerful, and it's the pollsters, and it's the former cabinet members and campaign people. And I've been promising to get this, and I do have it. I do have the audio. I don't have it queued up for today. It just we're in an election cycle. There's just so much stuff going on every day that we need to talk about the next day that it's hard to get to. But at some point, Tony, I really want to play that clip about these this smoky room on the circus on Showtime. Which has been doing a great job every week of basically showing the behind the scenes of politics and politicking and all of that. It's the those two guys from Bloomberg TV that, with all due respect, that's now playing on MSNBC. Mark Halperin and John Heilman, who do this thing called the circus, and there's a scene in it that's it's pretty long. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long. So trying to squeeze it in on a show where we've got so much going on isn't the easiest thing to do. But it's these guys discussing basically the horror and the fear. And there are all of these kind of backroom deals. The tech industry now, from what the news is telling us and showing us, the tech industry is terrified of a Donald Trump presidency, and they're having meetings. And this is a runaway train that they can't seem to stop unless, like we've talked about, unless he falls short of the 50% and way short. It would have to be really short of the 50% needed to get the nomination. Because
and it's not going to happen.
And there are just too many arguments as to what the rules really mean. And there are, the lawyers that are backing Trump are going to read the rules one way, and the lawyers that are backing anyone but Trump, including Homer Simpson, are going to read the rules in a way that favors a brokered nomination. And whatever the rules.
And I just heard this morning, Z. Go ahead.
Well, and here's the thing, Tony, is that if he gets 49% of the 50% required, it isn't going to matter to anyone or almost anyone in this country what the rules say. He got more than anyone else, and that's all that people are going to care about. And the establishment doesn't seem to understand that they have spent a tremendous amount of time making sure that we're uneducated, that we don't really know what happens, so that they can say, you don't understand how Washington works. That's why I'm here. And now they're stuck with this. Now they're going to be stuck with saying, well, this is what the rules say. And the people that they taught to not care about the rules, because it's the same way they argue in Congress and they interview on TV, are now going to look at them and say, you're lying. And it doesn't matter what the rules say. No. We want Donald Trump. He got more votes than anyone. He should be the nominee. And this is going to be a really tough call for them.
The supporters will say that. I'm not convinced that the general electorate will. But with that said, I believe that he will reach the threshold of 51% without a problem, and it's a moot point. Let me just share a public policy polling survey. We'll preview the debate a little bit tonight and then talk a little bit about the very failed and flawed Marco Rubio. A new public policy survey finds Americans want President Obama to be able to appoint Antonin Scalia's replacement. Key findings. You're going to love this. Only 33% of voters trust Ted Cruz to nominate a new Supreme Court. 57% don't. 31% trust Donald Trump, 62% don't. 26% trust Marco Rubio, 61% don't. Independent voters in particular have little faith in the GOP hopefuls to nominate a Supreme Court justice. 61% don't trust Trump, and 58% don't trust Cruz or Rubio. One particular brutal finding for Rubio on this poll is that even among Republicans, there are more, 45%, who don't trust him to make that appointment than do 41% trust him. And it goes on from there. I just wanted to throw that out there as people are considering who to vote for. As people are watching the debate tonight, keep all this information in mind because it should factor into your decision. Tonight, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich will be in Miami. They will stand before an audience of rabid Republicans. They will do what it is they do. I was going to say do best, but I don't know what that is. And tomorrow you and I will either be having a conversation where you don't know what to say and I get to laugh, or we'll have plenty to say and it won't be funny.
Yeah. Well, and like we talked about this morning, Rubio came out hard against Trump, thinking that was going to, I'm going to pull a Trump on Trump, and that has actually hurt him. Right? I mean, that magical formula.
Well, they're saying that's caused him. They're saying that's caused him the nomination.
Yeah. Well, as of just earlier this morning, the poll numbers in Florida are 45% Trump, 22% Rubio, and Rubio had a Romney moment yesterday where they opened up an entire football field for a Rubio event, and I want to say maybe 100 people showed up, but it wasn't even. I don't even think they filled up the distance between a yard line.
No, it was embarrassing.
It's kind of sad.
And by the way, that Romney moment happened in Detroit at Ford Field where the Lions play.
Right.
And they ended up having a curtain, which they didn't expect to fill the whole place to begin with. But the curtain they put up, they moved about 60 yards forward.
Yeah. Well,
the curtain was still there, and
go ahead.
Go ahead.
There were actually pictures going.
I was going to say
there were actually pictures going around from the Romney campaign showing the crowd in the audience for him, and people looked closer at it, and they had actually photoshopped the original crowd into making it more of a crowd. So they had just duplicated the same crowd several times to basically show the tremendous amount of people that were there.
Yeah, it was funny. Anyway, so Marco Rubio, and for those that want to read the Washington Post story about his imploding campaign, we have posted it to TNZ Talk on our Facebook page. It's a long story, well worth the read. It breaks down exactly when Marco Rubio jumped the shark, or when the pundits feel he jumped the shark. But the reality is, this guy is toast. He isn't going to leave before the Florida primary. His political career will be damaged forever. As I posted this morning, he should give up. He should not run for the Senate or run for re-election. He should go become the lobbyist that he can be. He'll make millions of dollars and be able to live his life happily ever after. But I do remind him that history will not remember him for anything.
Anything. Nothing. Nothing at all.
No, he's done.
Here's my 2 cents. And we've been saying this. I mean, we've been saying he's done. He's cooked. I don't even think his political career will last. I mean, I think he just needs to hang it up.
Well, the reality is, the only political career he had was at the state level. He's done nothing in the Senate. I mean, literally nothing, including showing up for work. And yet he's taking home a paycheck every week that is provided by the taxpayers for not showing up to work. How do I get that frickin' job? Yeah. Because I work my ass off every day and make no money.
Right. And by no money, you mean no money, because I'm in the same boat.
Right.
Which leads us to our website, doesn't it?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. I just want to remind everybody that I'll be on Ed Schultz show tonight. I still don't know what time. Before we get to that, though, in the Washington Post today, your buddy Ben Carson wrote an op-ed.
Oh, please.
And I'm just going to give you the headline. It's just the headline. Yeah. Ben Carson, cuddle or dump, how down-ticket Republicans can handle a Trump nomination. And I'll let people go find that and read it.
Yeah, where is that?
Washington Post.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ben Carson got an op-ed in Washington Post?
The writer, a retired neurosurgeon, suspended his campaign for the 2016 Republican presidential nomination this month.
I love the word suspended. Yep. Like it insinuates that he might be back. You know? I mean, they all suspend their campaign.
Well, they say suspended to all of them.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I know.
Now, pull that trigger. Pull that TNZ trigger.
Well, and also, Tony, I want to remind people that tonight I will be watching you on the Ed Schultz show. So,
well, even if you have to go 2 towns over to do
that's right. So, if everyone who's listening wants to find out more about us and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and the myriad of other social media outlets, we have put ourselves onto. You can go to tandztalk.com. There's also a support page. You can find out the many ways to support us and the show. And there's our bio up there and all kinds of ways to get in touch with us and listen to us in our archives. And this podcast will be up later today, as usual.
Very good. Well, that'll clean it up for us today. Tomorrow, obviously, the lion's share of the show will be about the GOP. Do we know what channel it's on tonight? Is it on CNN?
I think it's on CNN.
All right. Either way, we'll be talking about it. In the meantime, go to tnztalk.com. I'm Tony Trupiano. He is Richard Zombeck. Our absolute gratitude and thankfulness and blessing from the great people at Blog Talk USA, including Ron and Rihanna. And as always, folks, we ask that you be well.